Right. My name is Amy Allen, and I am the president of the Social Science Education Consortium. And I'm happy to welcome you today to the second of three workshops sponsored by SSEC about AI in the social sciences. Today's workshop focuses on how AI can assist the teaching and learning of geography and is going to be led by a team of researchers, and I will let them introduce themselves in just a moment. But before we begin, I just wanted to say a few things about the format of today's workshop. While the group is presenting, the chat feature will be available and you can post questions you have in the chat, but we will address all of the questions at the end of the presentation in the Q&A. The session is scheduled to last for 60 minutes, but we do plan to take time to engage with your questions at the end of the session. If for some reason you need to leave, the session is being recorded and will be posted to the SSEC YouTube channel as a resource after today's recording. So again, welcome. And now I will turn things over to Terence to get started.
Thank you very much, Amy. My name's Terence Day. I teach geography at Okanagan College in Kelowna in BC. I'm also an adjunct at the Simon Fraser University in Burnaby. We've got 4 people with us on the panel, and basically Paul MacDaniel, who's an associate professor of geography in the Department of Geography and Anthropology in Kennesaw State University, is here. We've also got Kyle Redican, who's the director of the Spatial Analysis Lab at the University of Richmond in Virginia. We've got Tingting, who is an assistant professor who is in both the Department of Geography, Geomatics and Environment, and also in the Department of Mathematical and Computer Sciences at the University of Toronto in Mississauga. And then we've also got Junghwan Kim, who's actually at Virginia Tech, where Amy is also located. And we will, I think, perhaps do 10 minutes each. I'm going to start off just by making a general introduction to things, make 2 points. The first point is that I think that a lot of people's perception of AI and students is that they're used solely for cheating, and the academic integrity violations are the main issue. I think that although it is true that certainly plagiarism and other academic integrity issues have skyrocketed in terms of being an issue at the moment, students do use AI for a whole bunch of other reasons as well. The most commonly cited ones, I think, are in terms of coding and, of course, translation and assistance for language learners, but it goes well beyond that. In particular, I think there's a lot of interest in terms of creating summaries of lengthy articles and books, and just as you and I may read an abstract, then students may want to go a bit beyond that abstract, but don't necessarily want to read the entire thing. There's also a lot of use by students for idea generation. In terms of, it starts to get a little bit gray there between just copying stuff off of the AI and then perhaps, using it to generate an idea or two, which is, perhaps a little more acceptable. There's also a lot of interest in the idea of using AI as a kind of study buddy to just to learn things from, to answer questions, and also perhaps to test themselves. So there are a lot of legitimate uses of AI, and students are finding these things out. It's still very much a work in progress. But I think it's important that we not lose track of the fact that there are a lot of very positive applications of AI. The second quick point that I want to make is that the technology is evolving extremely fast. The newer models, in particular, the DeepSeek R1 and the ChatGPT O1 models are, chain of thought models. And in particular, the O1 at the moment is not connected to the web, but R1 is. And that certainly creates a lot of opportunities for getting things right and to at least come up with a source for some of the information. Those are the 2 points that I just wanted to start off with. And our schedule today is Paul's going to talk about class preparation. Carl's going to talk about assignment creation. Tingting's going to talk about quizzes. And Junghwan's going to talk about spatial analysis. So I wonder if, we're trying to make it as interactive as possible. So if you've got a favorite chatbot, by all means, open it up, and it might be possible in some cases for you to play along. So let's start off with Paul, who is going to be talking about class preparation. Over to you, Paul.
Great. Let me thank y'all for having us. Let me figure out sharing the screen here. Uh, does that appear to be working?
Looks great.
Okay. Great. So I'm Paul MacDaniel. I'm an associate professor of geography at Kennesaw State University, which is in Metro Atlanta, Georgia, here in the Southeast. I'm also currently the vice president for the Southeastern Division of the American Association of Geographers. So what I wanted to talk about today is a few examples of how I've been using generative AI as an assistant for some of my class preparation and helping to revise things that I do each time I teach different classes each semester to keep things fresh and also to sort of limit perhaps how students might be using old material from previous classes. So it's become really helpful for me as somewhat of an assistant, but it's also, I'm sure as many of you have encountered using it, as it's also sort of a trial and error thing. And I mean, you definitely have to, it's an iterative process that you have to build upon as you go through it. So the three examples I want to talk about for course prep include creating more efficient grading rubrics for different types of assignments, as well as creating new discussion activity prompts and creating lists of project topics to sort of help students get started on thinking about what they might do for their projects. So first of all, with grading rubrics, I know there's different perspectives on the use of rubrics for different types of assignments. My students have commented over the years about how they appreciate having them from the beginning so that they can have a general sense of how they'll be assessed for different types of activities, whether it's maybe it's an online discussion activity or maybe a GIS assignment or a research paper for a class. I found generative AI to be very helpful in creating more more efficient rubrics that students find more helpful in terms of the criteria that you can establish, the different threshold levels for points, and it's also helped me in the long run with being more efficient and also being fairer with grading to point out if you do these things based on the rubric, you'll get this amount of points for the activity. Um, I've used both ChatGPT and Gemini for all of the activities I'm talking about during this presentation. Um, and I've kind of gravitated more towards using Gemini recently as I seem to have become more familiar with the types of responses that it provides. Um, so anyway, I teach a wide variety of courses, both face-to-face and online. And in my online classes, we have a lot of online discussion activities. And so I've created some grading rubrics for that. So that's the example I wanted to show here. So I have a sample prompt here. So I'm not sure if it allows you to copy and paste from the PowerPoint or not, but I think we'll be sharing these slides later, right? Um,
Yes.
so anyway, there's a sample prompt there. Some of you may have tried this, but anyway, to create the rubric, first of all, I gave the context. I think with anything with generative AI, providing context is really important. So providing the overall assignment instructions, whether it's the discussion activity or another type of assignment, what do you expect the students to do to get out of it? And that provides the context for the AI. And then you ask the more specific task that you want it to do. If it's creating a rubric, you want to specify what's the total points possible for the activity. Um, what are the different criteria you would want to assess the activity on? What sort of different threshold levels do you want to provide examples for in terms of how you'll be grading that particular criteria? And what it will generate is a table based on, so this is an example for one of my online discussion activities, is what you're seeing here. After several refinement procedures. So you don't really take what you get the first time, right? You always want to refine what the AI is giving you based on your own expertise. Um, so it has different criteria level, it has different thresholds, exemplary, midpoint, unsatisfactory. Maybe you want to have more than those three. But it generates all the different text within the table, and then you can modify that based on if you feel there needs to be more specificity or something more related to a particular class that you're teaching. All right, so for the sake of time, I'll move on to the next thing. So that's the rubrics. Discussion prompts. So I'm always trying to come up with new discussion prompts for my classes, particularly the online classes that I teach because they do these online discussion activities. So again, providing context is really important to the AI. So what is the class that you're teaching? What is this particular discussion activity about? And then you can craft a prompt that will hopefully produce a more effective result that you can then modify through an iterative process. So here's an example prompt that's very basic. Um, Once you start playing around with this, you could add more context to it. So just at a basic level, you could prompt it to please create a list of online discussion activity prompts for a world regional geography class related to one or more of the five themes of geography. So that, of course, those being location, place, human environment interaction, movement, and region. You could tailor that to more specifically maybe the module that you're in within the course about a particular topic, or it's very customizable. But the main points to keep in mind are to be specific, provide the context of the instructions and what you hope the students to get out of it. Uh, what sort of responses do you hope students will provide to the prompts? So like such as encourage critical thinking, higher level thinking. Do you want them to compare and contrast different places or regions around a particular topic? So anyway, with this prompt, the results that I got were these. I mean, it's a lot of text on the screen, but it's giving you examples. It generated this all with one response. It said, okay, here are some general prompts based on the five themes of geography. And then it also gave a list of region-specific prompts that intersect with one or more of the five themes of geography. And then, of course, you'll have access to these later, so you can go back and look at these in more detail. And then the third example I want to talk about is using the AI to come up with a list of suggested topics for a project. So in several of my classes, they do large semester projects, and some of them they use Google Earth to create a Google Earth tour around a particular topic or location. And some of my other courses, they use ArcGIS Online to create maps, and they create story maps about a particular topic. So I've used AI to create grading rubrics for all of those. I've also used it to generate lists of potential topic ideas for students to sort of think about and brainstorm. It helps with their brainstorming to start thinking about, okay, here are some topics that are compelling that could be a starting point to focus on for the large semester project. So here's an example prompt. Of course, you could modify it to suit your particular course. This example is focusing on a Geography of North America class. Um, it's suggesting what the projects should be for, suitable to students at varying levels of experience with geography. Because in my class, we get both majors and non-majors taking these courses. So sometimes it might be the first time a student is in a geography course or interacting with geospatial technology. Anyway, so based on that prompt, here are some examples of what the AI generated. And then, of course, you would use your own experience and expertise to edit the list or modify the list, or perhaps it would inform how you might modify your prompt to get different types of results from the AI. So this leads me into talking about you don't want to really take the first thing you get. It's an iterative process. Providing context is key. So the Gen AI I found to be very useful as an assistant uh, to help me be more efficient with my course prepping. But then, of course, you're still the expert about the topic, and you want to make sure what it is that you're utilizing from the AI is also it aligns with your perspective on what it is that you're teaching and um, the particular topics and concepts that you want to have the students engage with in your course. Um, all right, so a few key takeaways. Like I was saying, I found it to be very useful as an assistant and to enhance my course preparation and my attempts at revising courses each semester and each year that I teach them. Again, providing the broader context is key to get more effective results from the AI. Focusing on refining the results and then proactive adaptations. That means thinking ahead about, okay, I know I'm going to be teaching this course next semester or next year. What do I want to start doing now that can help me with preparing new assignments, new discussions, new activities for that course that the AI can help me with at this point? Um, okay, so I think that might be a good amount of time for my portion of the presentation. Thank you. Let's see.
So we can move into kind of the next stage of it. So it kind of builds right off of what Paul was talking about in kind of our second stage here, where we're looking at um, assignment creation and artificial intelligence or language learning models. So I'm Kyle Redican. I'm the Director of Spatial Analysis Lab and teaching faculty in the Department of Geography, Environment, and Sustainability at the University of Richmond, where my primary job is to teach the GIS courses or some more of the technology-based ones, as well as help support other courses as well. So the angle that I'm kind of taking on this, building off of the initial content creation piece of it, oh, that did not show up the way, but all right, we're here now, type of thing. So before we go any kind of further, kind of thinking about utilizing AI for assignment kind of creation within it, if we look at like the ideas of technology and education and how those two kind of go across each other and it's constant kind of learning and constant evolving with it. I think with AI and kind of the space that we're in right now, especially with the chat and the other things that students have access to, we're trying to kind of catch up on the education sphere a bit of how we can maximize these tools and things with it. Now, when teachers are talking about teaching with technology in the classroom, some of the biggest barriers to that is actual technical skills, feeling like that as educators, we lack the technical skills to possibly be able to teach it kind of through in the ways that it might kind of show up. So whether it be the Conan Simpson one, where they had 55% of early career educators talking about technology lacking being one of the main kinds of issues, or their technology skills kind of being one of the main issues about not incorporating into their classes, or whether it be from the ISTE, the International Society of Technology Education, where 56% were either not confident or moderately confident in introducing technology into the classroom. So when we talk about this in geographic information systems, one of the bingo card things that if you're not a GIS person that you'll hear from all the GIS folks that are kind of out there, it'd be the center square in bingo if we're talking GIS academia bingo, is I know enough to be dangerous, but not enough to be an expert on it. And that's one of the big things that ends up kind of happening where we don't incorporate GIS into classes sometimes that would actually really fit into the class or the class assignment with it. So whether it be like kind of the initial German study where they're talking about issues of classroom implementation of GIS, feeling the lack of technical skills to create lessons or assignments, or even actually going into the Collins and Mitchell 2019 study where they had 18 teachers trying to overcome that by giving them actual GIS training, where 1 year later, when they checked back again, 16 teachers stopped using GIS because they saw it as too time consuming to create the assignments and keep up with the technological changes. There's this great meta review of GIS implementation in the classroom where they broke it down into resources and the human side of it. Now, here in our role as educators, we can't always change up the resources, whether we have the computers or the license or the software, all the pieces kind of for it. What we can work on is we can work on the human side of it, where it's the teacher's knowledge and skills or the teacher's training, which are some of the biggest barriers that teachers have kind of reported, whether it be pedagogical knowledge and skills or the technology knowledge and skills. And they kind of work together a little bit in my mind. So taking it from the GIS approach of trying to incorporate this into your classrooms in different ways, there is opportunities kind of for it with chat or any of these AI kind of bots that we'd have for it. So it was the summer right after chat kind of went, got penetration into the market. I was working with an undergraduate student, Mateo Gonzalez, and then the GIS operations manager here, Bessa Zamia, on trying to figure out how we can incorporate GIS into some of the, or incorporate chat GTP into some of the things that we try to do here. So a lot of times Beth will have to go into other folks' classrooms and actually teach and create the lab assignments. That happens with me occasionally as well. But the person who's the actual instructor of the class knows enough, again, to kind of be dangerous with it, but not enough to get a full kind of class for it. So we kind of thought about, as Terence was kind of saying at the beginning, so much of the conversation around these was how can students use this to cheat, or how does that change up what our educational kind of landscape really looks like from the student end? But we wanted to tackle it from kind of the instructor end, especially the instructor end, where they might not have the GIS expertise to see how this can be a supplement or something that can kind of help them get over the hump and actually incorporate GIS into their classrooms. So we took a lab that was from one of my classes, where it's a simple sea level rise lab, talking about a digital elevation model and seeing about 3 different scenarios that Noah's kind of outlined for 2100, as far as depending on how we change our greenhouse gas emissions and some of the pieces. So there's 3 different scenarios: a 3-meter increase, a 1-meter increase, and a 2.2 level or a 2.2 meter increase that could possibly be there. And we wanted to have, in my lab, they create a map and they tell us how much in these scenarios it would possibly be. So what I did was what me and the student did was we gave it this prompt that was almost the exact same prompt as what I would give my students before the step-by-step instructions. And we wanted to see is if chat could actually get us to the point of being able to get step-by-step instructions and do part of the job that takes up the most of my time. Obviously, grading is what takes up the large majority of our time. But the secondary kind of piece when I think about my time is the lab instructions and creating them and kind of getting them to that point. So what we did was we kind of gave it to chat GPT 3.5, and we saw how it kind of came out for it. So it ended up actually failing kind of across this GIS implementation or good GIS assignment literature with it. So on the left-hand side of the screen, we can see if we followed the chat instructions directly, it wasn't able to pick up on ordering of the different layers or changing out the fill on it, as well as a number of other just kind of visual pieces for it. Where the right-hand side is what the instructor-led kind of instructions would give you. So here we have all 3 scenarios in different colors. So 0.3 meters kind of the smallest, but we can see them all on one single map. So chat was not able to kind of get to the point of putting them all on one map, as well as not able to kind of get some of these pieces here. However, simple ordering, you don't have to be a GIS expert to change up the order of the layers in the contents window. But it had some other major kind of issues with it as well, where when we talked about sea level rise scenarios, it wanted us to add a meter to it, not subtract it. So if you think about the digital elevation model as 0 being sea level and positive numbers being above and negative numbers below, adding a meter to that original DEM is implying that sea level went down 1 meter. It took it a little bit too literally to kind of be able to pick up on it. But again, that's still something that if you know enough about it, you're going to be able to identify that kind of within the pieces for it. Now, the place where it got a little bit trickier for folks that might not have as much GIS kind of expertise or experience kind of with it was about the tools that they used. Raster tools have their own entirely kind of unique set of kind of things that they have to do because the data is a little bit different. So what it wasn't able to kind of get to was getting the right tools for the raster data sets for us to kind of look into a little bit there. So the lab instructions, what we kind of took away from it is it's still this continuous conversation. It's not just going to be as easy as putting it all in there and just hoping for kind of the best along with it. You have to do that continuous prompt and that continuous conversation, kind of as Paul was saying before, to kind of flesh it out a little bit more. So if it's a clip versus clip raster tool, you have to say, oh, that tool didn't work, which still adds more time and kind of the pieces of it, but you can get a little bit of it out of it there. I tried it again recently on Chat 4.0, and it fixed a number of the problems. It adjusted the tools the proper way because it learned a little bit, but there was still that human expertise kind of that was necessary. We can't remove the human component from kind of the AI model. There's still that expertise in those pieces. This Neil Patel blog post said it was still heavy human touch. I'd say it's moderate human touch still kind of attached to it. And it's only going to be getting better as they continue to train and continue to kind of be used. But it is a way to possibly get into incorporating GIS or some of these other technologies by utilizing this as kind of your assistant to help kind of write out a lot of those pieces like Paul was saying before. So I think we pass this over to Tingting here. So I'm going to end my show and stop the share.
Thank you, Kyle. And in this presentation, I'm going to show a very simple case in a course that I currently teach. It is a spatial data science course. And in this course, I help students to prepare for their midterm by using generative AI to generate practice questions. So a little bit of background. In this course, I have been teaching for a few years, and every year I have been providing this study guide to students. So in the study guide, I prompt students to think about different questions for the topics we teach. For example, what are the examples of dispersions? How do you calculate them? Which one would you use for a given example? So to prompt students to think about different cognitive levels for each topic. And the purpose of the study guide is first, to help them to focus on the learning objectives, and second, to help them to alleviate the anxiety. So this year, I decided to also teach them or give them some tips about how to generate questions, the practice questions, using the generative AI. And I prepared 2 different prompts. And in these 2 prompts, the first prompt, I asked the ChatGPT, as well as some other models like DeepSeek, to please create a few practice questions for undergraduate students in a spatial data science course to prepare for the midterms on the following topics. I listed all the topics and then also asked to generate the questions for 3 different formats: multiple choice, short answer, and problem solving. For prompt B, it is something similar, except that I didn't list the topics. Instead, I copied over my study guide. And now I would like to ask Amy to initiate this poll. Please make a guess. What is the percentage of questions that are within the course scope using the prompt A? And how about prompt B? I will give it 20 more seconds. Okay, now I'm gonna end the poll and share results. Oh, I cannot share. All right. So majority picked 40 to 60% for prompt A, and majority picked 60 to 80% for prompt B. And I will share the analysis I did to see if this aligns with what you expected. So I did do an analysis of the questions that were produced by the different models of generative AI. And I mark them as out of scope or within scope based on the course content. And for those questions that are also within the scope, I would further analyze if the solutions they provided are correct or incorrect or needs improvement. And I compared 4 different models. Those are ChatGPT 4.0, O1, and DeepSeek V3 and R1. Okay, now I'm going to ask you another question. So again, make a guess. Which model do you think produced the highest percentage of questions that are both within scope and provided with the correct answers? I will wait for 10 more seconds as majority has voted. It seems like our participants has more faith in ChatGPT 4.0. So now let me share the results here. So we've got 2 different types of prompt A and prompt B. And for the percentage of questions that are within the scope, after comparison, the prompt B has almost close to 100% coverage. Some are with like around 90%. While for prompt A, it's mostly between like 0 to 67%. So this, I made a point to the students. I also shared this table with the students, and I made a point that by improving the prompts, they can also improve the outcomes. And for the percentage of questions that are both correct and within the scope, it looks like that for ChatGPT, it has slightly better outcomes, accuracies, compared to the DeepSeek. But be aware of this small sample size that is on here. So because of the small sample size, we may not be able to generalize our results. So I further consulted with literature. There aren't any that is on the GIS related to this approach, but I did find some medical exams in the literature where they've also find that ChatGPT performs better than the DeepSeek in terms of the accuracy. So with that, I provided a 10-minute short tip session to the students. Besides the tips for increasing the coverage of the topics, and also tell students to check for accuracy by pointing out that the accuracy is not 100% for any of the models, so that students are aware of how to cross-check and always fact-check. And other than that, I also provided some tips of generating different types of questions using different formats or different difficulty levels, and also to refine the prompts iteratively. And after the session, students really appreciated that the instructor is sharing their insights regarding using the generative AI for preparing the tests or to study for the course in general. And the students also highlighted a few things that I didn't expect, that they said they never thought that they could use the prompt to generate different types of questions or different levels of difficulties. And it was eye-opening for them to see that using the study guide, the generated questions are within the scope that are highly improved. Also, some students shared some ineffective prompts that they used prior to the lecture, such as they feed the topics only to the prompt, or feed the entire chapter into the textbook chapter into the generative AI. So that produced something that they were not looking for. So with a student's feedback, my next implementation is to introduce these established prompt framework for the students. And also, since this is a spatial data science course, I will also introduce some potential applications in GIS. And I think this slide leads perfectly into our next topic. So I will end here.
Okay, so let me share my screen. Okay, so yeah, thanks, Tingting. So hello everyone. My name is Junghwan Kim, and I'm an assistant professor at the Department of Geography and the director of the Smart Cities for Good, a research group that aims to solve urban transportation and public health issues with using smart city technologies. So in today's presentation, I will focus on geographic limitations of generative AI tools and discuss potential implications for research and education. So as our speakers already successfully demonstrated, generative AI has the great potential to be integrated with GIS analysis and geography education, such as coding and spatial analysis assistance, and etc. For instance, a group of researchers at Penn State University has developed GIS analysis support, such as GIS Copilot. In my group here at Virginia Tech, we focused on AI-based built environmental auditing tools that can be used for urban planning, and also generative AI enhanced online map dashboard, and so on. However, do generative AI tools perform same or differently across geographic regions? Are there any uneven geography of generative AI's capabilities? So before we delve into this topic, let's have a brief interactive activity session. So in this session, we will examine potential geographic disparities in generative AI tools, focusing on their ability to provide local specific information. So first, try to open any generative AI tools such as ChatGPT or Cloudy on your computer. And then second, send the following prompts to generative AI tools. So the prompt is, what are the environmental issues of county, state? And if you do not have the local specific information, please indicate that you are unable to provide it. So to assist your activity, I included some example counties here. So for example, Ward County, West Virginia, that has population about 5,000. And on the contrary, I also include Fairfax County, Virginia, that has a population about 1.14 million. So consider using different models, such as older model like GPT-4 or a newer model like GPT-01. So I will give you a few seconds so that you can try to explore this. And then once you observe the responses from generative AI models, please share your thoughts or what you observed over the chat window. I will give you about 20 to 30 seconds so that you can explore this. Yeah, thank you, Marty. Marty, so you uploaded this kind of a prompt. Yeah, so in the bracket, you can just say, try to include some kind of, nearby county or of your where you live or etc. Yeah, feel free to share any observations. I will resume my presentation after like 20 seconds. So the best practice would be that you probably want to compare two different locations to see whether you will get the similar answer or different answer. Okay, so I cannot see any responses from chat window, so nobody wants to share their thoughts on this. That's totally fine. It's a volunteer activity. Okay, then because I cannot wait for 10 minutes for you to do this, so let's move forward, and I will just keep watching you can still share your thoughts on through the chat window while I give the remainder of the presentation. So let me share the results from my previous studies with a more systematic approach. So in this study I conducted in 2023 with GPT-4 model. I used OpenAI's API and asked ChatGPT to answer environmental justice issues of each county in the United States, and I repeated this for about 3,000 counties in the United States. The result that makes me very interesting is that for about 84% of counties, ChatGPT does not provide any local specific response, saying that it does not have access to real-time information. However, is it indeed the case? For instance, the Worth County is a very rural county in West Virginia and has shared issues with environmental issues according to CDC. However, ChatGPT did not provide any local specific responses, saying I'm sorry, but I don't have access to real-time information. So I think since this model has been evolving so fast and then more advanced, at this, if you try this, at today, it probably give answers to you. But I like to say that when I conducted this project in 2023, still the model was a little bit immature, so it did not provide some answers about 84% of counties in the United States. So let's go more detail with the results. So on this map, red color indicates counties that do not get local specific answer from ChatGPT, while blue colors indicate the opposite case. So by observing this map, we can generally see that there is a geographic pattern regarding ChatGPT's response. More specifically, the statistical modeling results confirm this. Counties that are more rural and poorer have a higher chance of not receiving local specific responses from ChatGPT compared to more urban and wealthier counties. In the interest of time, I could only share the results from one study. However, for my other studies, there's a strong evidence that generative AI tools' capabilities are not geographically even, meaning that some areas are better than other areas. So although it would be difficult to pinpoint the true cause for the uneven geography of AI tools' capabilities, one educated guess that I can make is that it would result from imbalanced training data. It is widely known that those large language models are trained on available online data that might not reflect the real-world information evenly. So for instance, there's a famous paper published in the Annals of the American Association of Geographers in 2014 demonstrating the geographically uneven coverage of Wikipedia. This might hint why our generative AI models do not work well with certain areas. So let's then briefly discuss about implications for geography and GIS education. When I share my research findings with my students, overall, I found two reactions from students. Some students thought that AI was perfect, and they were surprised to know that AI could not provide responses to some reasons. Other students, on the contrary, think the AI is less relevant to their work and is less interested in using it. Overall, this students' response lead me to think about AI literacy of students. Since AI becomes an important tool or technology in our society, industry, and research in general, it is becoming more important to enhance students' AI literacy. Here, the definition of AI literacy, according to Southward and colleagues, it is one's ability to understand, use, evaluate, and as well as ethically navigate AI. So in this talk, I argue that our geography and GIS education also incorporates students' learning outcomes and activities that can help students' AI literacy. So perhaps enhancing AI literacy is more important for geography and GIS education, where many students might not have strong engineering backgrounds because of this STEM and non-STEM divide in AI. So in my recent study that surveyed about 900 students at Virginia Tech, there was a strong gap between STEM students and non-STEM students regarding AI use, their comfortableness to use it, and so on. Again, given the fact that AI would become more important for preparing our students for future workforce, it is critical to bridge the gap by promoting geography and GIS students' AI literacy. So therefore, with that in mind, at Virginia Tech, I developed this new course about generative AI applications in social science, aiming to enhance students' AI literacy. This class covers several topics, such as fundamentals, prompt engineering, and customized generative AI tools. So for example, last semester, one student created a chatbot that cartographically evaluates the map, and other groups created a chatbot that can assess trees' health when users provide photos of trees. These students did not have strong computer science backgrounds, but they could achieve this as current generative AI tools lower the barriers of using and applying AI tools for various cases. So to sum up, I think it is pivotal time for us to integrate AI with geography and GIS education so that we can provide learning environments to students so that they can fully prepare for future workforce where high level of AI literacy is required. So in the interest of time, I could not share any other details about my current work related to geographic perspectives of AI. So if you are interested in, you can just visit my website to learn more about my other works related to the generative AI and geography perspective. So thanks very much for your attention, and these are my collaborators of this project. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much, Alan, and thank you very much, everybody else, for the contributions you've made there. It seems to me that there are two important themes that come out of all of these presentations. One is the importance of geography, and I think the comments just now about the inability of the training data to accurately represent what's going on throughout the world. The fact that so much seems to be generalized, essentially, it's ignoring the geography. And that's certainly something that does need to be addressed. One of the things I've discovered, for example, is that these chatbots do a terrible job at reading maps. They just cannot read a map. And if they can't read a map, then it's going to significantly impinge on their ability to understand the geography of anywhere. The second point that I think is really a cross-cutting one here is the importance of students. And that although we've talked about teaching, effectively what we've also been talking about implicitly is learning. And I think in particular the comments made by Tingting about the fact that the students appreciated these explanations of the prompts so much, and I think the fact that the Paul's comments about the rubrics and how much the students appreciate good rubrics. They understand what they're aiming at. I think in terms of Kyle's work, in terms of the GIS, again, coming back to the importance of geography and being able to overcome the barriers to all of that stuff. I think that, what we're doing here is we're really at a crossroads in terms of our implementation of AI and the way that we develop AI, the way that we use AI. I think that it's really changing the nature of knowledge. It's certainly impacting potentially social constructionism. And I think potentially in terms of teaching, it's also going to impact constructivism. I think it's important that, in particular, that students working together in groups use this technology, but also recognize the fact that it completely changes the nature of groups. Suddenly, you're dealing not just with groups of students, you're dealing with machines, which are part of that group. It completely moves the dynamic. It changes the role of the educator, in terms, in terms of being the sage on the stage, as they say. It really does behoove us to be the guide on the side, to be the facilitator of this learning process. But I think that, I'd really be interested in hearing some questions from folks, and I think that Amy is going to coordinate the question period, so I'm going to hand it over to her.
That's great. Thank you all. Thank you to all of our presenters. I really appreciate that high level and really specific overview of what it looks like to incorporate geography into education and how generative AI into geography education. So thank you all for sharing. We have about 10 minutes for questions, but I know our presenters are willing to stay a little bit longer than that as well. So if you have a question, you're welcome to unmute yourself and ask it, but you can also put it in the chat. And I know we had a little discussion ahead of time that you can direct your question toward a specific presenter, but we'll also give them all a chance to respond. And they were very clear that they may not agree in their answers. So this is still new technology and we're still trying to figure out what it means. So you might get more than one answer for your question. Right. While you all are thinking of really good questions, I'm going to go ahead and just do a really quick plug for our previous webinar, our next webinar, and also for the Social Science Education Consortium in general. Our first webinar was about AI in history education, and that's available on our YouTube channel. Our next webinar will be about AI and civics education, and you can still register for that on our Eventbrite site. And if you are just looking for a place that you might want to connect with other social science educators, I'm going to share the Social Science Education Consortium website. So our group is made up of not only social science educators in the field of history, geography, civics, and economics, it's also made up of social science researchers who are geographers, historians, economists, and geographers. So we would love to have you consider joining us. Our next conference is in Detroit this summer. Our last conference was in Marrakesh, Morocco last summer, and we kind of go back and forth between going to places that are domestic and international, but we are always hoping to have more social science researchers joining us because we feel like the connection between social science research that is happening and social science classrooms, educators who are with K-12 students who are in college classrooms, is really important. And so if you are interested at all, you're welcome to ask me for more information or visit our website, but we would love to have you join us sometime in the future. So hopefully that little spiel gave you some time to think of questions if you have one. I'm going to stop the recording just in case somebody might be uncomfortable unmuting themselves on a recording.